Hey guys, welcome to Cape and Cowl Cafe. I'm Nemo, and today we're going to be taking a trip down memory lane as we rank all of the alien transformations from Ben 10 Classic. If you guys enjoy the video at any point today, I'd really appreciate if you hit that like and subscribe button. It'd really mean a lot to me, but let's just hop right into this. Now, I have wanted to make a video on Ben 10 for the longest time, because when I was growing up, I was absolutely addicted to this show. It was just the coolest thing I had ever seen, and it is so sad to see the current state of the franchise. Well, most cartoons in general these days, but that's a topic for another day. But, you know, instead of crying about the present, we're going to put on our rose-tinted glasses and take a look into the past, and we are going to, figure out which alien truly was the best. Let's go. Alright, starting off the list in last place at number 21, we have Frankenstrike. Now, all of these Halloween-themed monster aliens, I always thought were just so dumb. They didn't fit in the context of the world, they didn't match the vibe of the rest of the aliens, especially in the classic series. I think the classic series had the best, alien designs. They all felt so out there and weird. And, the three monster aliens they always felt out of place, especially Frankenstrike, because, I can't believe I'm about to say this about a fictional universe, but you can't convince me that there's an alien species that looks like Frankenstein. It's just a stupid concept and I won't accept it. So I always just kind of forget about this one. It's just a nothing burger of an alien. All right, next on number 20, we have Snarrow. Now, again, as I just said, I don't like the monster aliens. They don't fit the vibe of the show, so I'm just going to rush through these. But, Snarrow doesn't even have any, unique abilities. He's just a worse wild find. Alright, next up at number 19, we have Blitzwolfer. Now, this is the last of the monster aliens, and honestly, this is the only one that's believable. Like, I can accept that there would be a species of alien wolves. That can kind of make sense, Way more believable than a mummy or Frankenstein. Blitzwolfer is pretty cool. I did like his debut episode in the classic series, and he does have, sort of a unique power set. His snout kind of opens up into, four little flaps, kind of like the Demogorgon from Stranger Things, and he has a sonic scream, but honestly, we get a way, better version of that later with Echo Echo. So, Blitzwolfer, he's cool, but he's going to be closer to the bottom. All right, next up at number 18, we have Buzzshock. Now, this alien first appeared as an antagonist in the show, and I prefer it that way. Alone, Buzzshock is just kind of a bland, boring electric alien, but, when the species first debuted, it was a huge group of them that kind of took over a small town, and honestly, their chaotic personalities made them way more interesting. They were kind of like a huge electric hive mind, and it was just really funny. And so, Ben turning into just one of them, it doesn't really do it for me. It's kind of lame. Moving on. Alright, next up at number 17, we have Arctiguana. Now, this alien is actually really cool. I like the design, I like the voice, I like the power set. It's kind of weird to think that this is the only ice alien in the classic series roster, but honestly, we don't get to see him that often. He only has 2 appearances, and both of them are in the Ben 10,000 alternate future episodes. So he's going to be a little bit lower on the list due to lack of, appearances, but he is pretty cool. I just wish we got to see him more. All right, next up at number 16, we have Eye Guy. Now, I absolutely love the design for this alien. I think it looks creepy and weird, and it's perfect for the aesthetic of Ben 10. But you lose me with the power set, okay? I think it is so lazy when they just make Ben's aliens shoot lasers, That's boring, okay? Anyone can do that. And especially with Eye Guy, look at him. He's got giant ears on his head. He's covered in eyeballs. Why don't you just make him more like a Daredevil character where he's all about the senses and stuff like that? I know that doesn't make sense because Daredevil's blind and this guy's covered in eyeballs, but you get the point. Do something other than just shoot lasers. It's lazy. Like, I really believed that this was the idea when they were designing Eye Guy, but then they ran into that wall where they're like, oh crap, Wildnut's already the Daredevil alien. He's blind, he uses echolocation. What are we gonna do? And they're like, we'll just, have him shoot lasers or something. Yeah, that works. Like, come on. Really? Alright, next up at number 15, we have Ripjaws. Now, he has a really cool design. He looks like a weird, creepy fish guy. And honestly, he should be lower on the list because he is just absolutely useless. But I think that's what I like about him. Let me explain. Now, I really like the storytelling devices used by this show. It feels a lot like Spider-Man. Now, I know that might not make sense, but just hear me out. The Omnitrix is constantly malfunctioning and is always throwing Ben the wrong alien, the one that he doesn't pick. And so he has to kind of, think on his feet and solve problems in the moment and figure out a different way to win, despite not having the alien that he chose. They do the same thing with Spider-Man all the time. His web shooters. He's swinging around, he's fighting a villain. Oh, he runs out of web fluid. He's got to find another way to win. He has to use his intelligence to win the fight. is just a way more interesting way to tell the story, and it really showcases, the hero's ability to adapt in any situation. It's a really good tool. And so I think Ripjaws is, kind of like the web shooter alien, or one of them. There's a few. Ben's, let's say he's falling, from the sky, and he wants to pick Stinkfly, but the Omnitrix gives him Ripjaws, and now he has to find another way to get out of that situation. It's just more interesting. But Ripjaws, he's alright, he's pretty cool. Okay, coming up next at number 14, we have Ditto. Now, I really enjoyed Ditto when he was first introduced, and honestly, I can't decide if I like him or Echo Echo more because they really have the same gimmick, they're just clones. But I think Ditto is more interesting because his clones share pain, and you can tell some really interesting stories with that, and it's kind of a built-in weakness. I always think it's good when an alien has a built-in flaw, It doesn't make them too powerful. Ditto is just funny, he had a good voice actor, good personality. The design's alright, it's not the craziest thing I've ever seen. I think I like Echo Echo's design more, but Ditto definitely has a better personality. Alright, next up at number 13, we have Upchuck. Now, I think Upchuck is a really good way to make a goofy alien, still seem powerful. He has a really weird power set, but he's not to be messed with, alright? This is the guy that destroyed Mount Rushmore, which I think is just so funny. But I didn't like all the weird stuff they did with the subspecies and, Omniverse. There's like 2 different kinds of Upchuck. That's why he looked different in Alien Force and Ultimate Alien. I just liked Upchuck the way he was in the classic series. He was just a fun alien, Okay, next up at number 12, we have Wildvine. Now, I think that a lot of these aliens just have really interesting power sets, and Wildvine is no exception. He's kind of like a Mr. Fantastic type guy because he can stretch his limbs out really far and, swing from things, and he can kind of morph his body like that, but, he's made out of plants. So he's got all of the cool powers the Swamp Fire has, minus the fire, but he also has these, like, spores that grow off of his body, and he can rip them out and chuck them at people, and they're like bombs. That's way more interesting than just shooting lasers. Like, some of these aliens are just so creative, And I really like his design too. I like how his shoulder things kind of look like a Venus flytrap and, his head is in the middle. It's just a really cool detail. He looks really cool. Alright, in 11th place, we have Wild Mutt. Now, I think a lot of people sleep on Wild Mutt. They think he's lame, but he's actually pretty cool. I think all of the aliens from here on out are just, like, near perfect. They're so cool. Anyway, Wild Mutt has a really cool power set. He's essentially Daredevil, where he's got the echolocation, so he can kind of like sense his way around, because he doesn't have eyes. And he's also like a dog. I think it's really cool, and honestly, it's a really good idea to have some aliens that can't talk, it adds some variety to the roster. I really like it when all the aliens kind of have their own personalities, and they all feel different. That's how it should be. Alright, cracking the top 10, we have Waybig. Now, what a cool transformation. Just so awesome. I'm not sure if I'm a huge fan of his weird arm crossing laser power thing, but his design is awesome. Obviously inspired by Ultraman, and I love all versions of it across the whole show. And honestly, his debut probably had to be one of the coolest ever from all the aliens. In The Secret of the Omnitrix movie, Ben transformed into Waybig and then threw Vilgax into space like a baseball. I was not expecting that as a kid, and it blew my mind. It was just the craziest thing ever. Waybig is awesome. Alright, next up at number 9, we have Ghost Freak. Now, honestly, Ghost Freak as an alien is okay. He looks like a ghost, he can go through walls, all the ghost stuff. But what made him so interesting and so cool in the classic series was the fact that Ghost Freak escaped the Omnitrix and then became a recurring villain. Like, so crazy. And that original episode where we first saw Ghost Freak's true form, terrifying. Gave me nightmares as a kid. So cool. But I really do like Ghost Freak, and I do like the original design where you can kind of see the seam lines for where he would tear himself apart and reveal the true form. Such a fire design. Alright, next in 8th place we have Upgrade. Now, let me just say, they get so damn creative with the lore and some of these species in this universe. It's so cool to see. So Upgrade species isn't a naturally occurring race. They were created by the Galvans, so they're synthetic beings. They're called galvanic mechamorphs. Such a cool concept, and I really like his power set. He's able to take over any piece of technology, make it better, kind of morph it into whatever he wants. And I really like Upgrade's design. I think the black, the green, and the white color scheme just really works for the show and its aesthetic. It's so cool. However, I do wish that Upgrade had a different voice. He just sounds like Ben, but with some kind of filter over it.
Why can't you just be grounded like your master?
And that's one thing that I forgot to mention. One of the things that makes a lot of these aliens so iconic is the voice work behind it. Alright, next up at number 7, we have Cannonbolt. Now, I didn't really like this alien that much when I was a kid. but that's just because I thought his design wasn't cool. But I have now come to appreciate the genius behind this alien. He had one of the coolest debuts in the show. He had his own episode, and like, it was a really cool story to see Ben kind of, you know, writing off this alien as useless because of the way it looked, and then he eventually figured out its secret ability, and it was just so OP and so cool, you know? I just think he's a cool alien. He's got a cool voice. He's got a cool design. Super underrated for sure. All right, next up at number 6, we have Stinkfly. Now, I know a lot of people don't like Stinkfly, but I feel like they're missing the point, you know? A lot of people don't like him because he's weak and fragile and he's lame and, you know, he's not really that cool of an alien. But that's the point, you know? Like, you'd expect a flying superhero to be like Superman. Stinkfly's a bug, you know? And this is the show about aliens, so I feel like that makes more sense. But I really do like Stinkfly's design. It's super unique. And I love how most of the aliens in the classic series kind of stick with the white and black bodysuit, you know, design element. I think that's really unique, and I don't know. I don't really like a lot of the designs from Alien Force and Ultimate Alien because they're all naked. This one feels just way more cool. I don't know. Might just be me. All right, next up at number 5, we have Four Arms. That's right, he's not in the top 3. He is cool, he's got a cool design, iconic voice, but he's not a top 3 alien for me. You know, like, he's just a strong alien. That's really all he is. I mean, he has 4 arms, that's his gimmick, but I feel like he works better as a plot device. Now, remember what I said earlier about Ben kind of, you know, being given the wrong alien and having to, you know, solve problems in the moment without having his best alien? Four Arms is his best alien. You know, this is the one that he's always dialing up. He's always trying to turn into Four Arms so he can win the fight as quickly as possible. You know, but then he gets Gray Matter or Stinkfly or Ripjaws, and he's got to find another way. So I feel like it's kind of boring when he just turns into Four Arms. You know, like, he's cool. He's got some cool fight scenes, but there's just other aliens that are way better. I don't know. All right, next up at number 4, we have Gray Matter. Now, I really like Gray Matter. I know he's small and he super sucks and he has many physical disadvantages, but he's a genius and that's really cool, you know? This is the alien that the Omnitrix gives Ben when he wants to be Four Arms. That's a really good plot device, really cool storytelling tool, and honestly, one of my favorite episodes of the classic series was the one where Ben got stuck as Gray Matter for the entire episode, and he got kidnapped by this weird alien-obsessed collector dude, and, you know, he had to find another way out. He couldn't just turn into Four Arms or Heatblast or Diamond Head. He had to, you know, use his brain and solve problems. And I mean, I really like the design for this alien. I love how the Omnitrix logo is too big for this species, so it's just kind of slapped on his back. Really cool design. All right, next up at number 3, we have Diamond Head. I just think that this alien is a better Four Arms, you know? He's way more versatile, and anytime Ben needs to go up against some kind of big physical threat, I think Diamond Head is the better option. Not only is he strong, but he also has ranged attacks, and he has diamond constructs. He's super durable, he's super fast, he's super strong. I think he's Ben's most well-rounded alien. He's just so good. And this is the one that he used to beat Vilgax in Alien Force. Crazy. Coming up next at number 2, we have Accelerate. I think this is one of the coolest designs for a speedster ever. I really like how they have the little balls on his feet and, you know, he kind of like rolls across the battlefield instead of like actually running. Really cool design for a speedster. I like how he has a tail that kind of helps balance him and he can use it as a weapon. I really like how he has that little face shield thing that, you know, covers his face while he's running. Weird design for an alien, but, you know, if a species evolved over millions of years to run at like sonic speeds, they might develop something like that. I guess it's kind of believable, but I like how just weird and wiry this alien's frame is. It just looks so creepy, but so cool at the same time. And the color scheme is peak. All right, I'm basic, I know, but at number 1, I got Heatblast, obviously. He's just the coolest alien with the coolest design. He's got the best voice. He's voiced by Steve Bloom, who does Wolverine, like...
You're right! Unless you punks want a permanent sunburn.
Come on, you know, I love how he's living fire covered in these volcanic plates that make up his body. It just looks so sick, and his powers are just awesome. He can fly, he can glide on meteors, he can shoot flames, fireballs, weird energy beams. It's so cool. He's the best.
I don't know him.
Alright guys, that's going to be about it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed it all, I'd really appreciate if you hit that like and subscribe button. It'd really mean a lot to me. And drop in the comments down below your favorite classic Ben 10 alien. Let's talk about it. But yeah, until next time, I'll see you guys later.